single GPS record may have changed everything investigators thought they knew about the Nolan Wells case. Not because it proves what happened, but because it exposes a timeline that no one has fully explained. Tonight, we're looking at the newly uncovered GPS data, conflicting witness accounts, and the unanswered questions that continue to surround Nolan Wells' final hours. For weeks, the Nolan Wells case has raised more questions than answers. Friends, family, investigators, and the public have all been trying to understand what happened on Horn Island during the 4th of July weekend. Now, a newly reported piece of evidence has become one of the biggest talking points in the investigation. According to reports, GPS tracking data from the boat involved in the trip provides an exact record of where that boat traveled throughout the day. Unlike witness memories, GPS data records movement automatically. It doesn't explain conversations or decisions, but it does provide timestamps that investigators can compare with every account they've received. That doesn't mean the GPS proves a crime occurred. What it does mean is that investigators now have a more precise timeline to examine. And in a case where even small differences matter, that timeline has become an extremely important point. One of the biggest questions in this case has always been simple. What was Nolan planning to do before the boat left Horn Island? For much of the investigation, only one version of events was widely discussed. According to statements shared by Nolan's friends, he had supposedly decided to remain on the island instead of leaving with the group. If that account is accurate, then Nolan made the choice to stay behind while the boat returned to the mainland. But another version has now entered the public record. Through a statement released by her family, Katie, the young woman Nolan was reportedly speaking with before the boat departed, gave a different account of what she remembered. According to her family's statement, Nolan told her he planned to get back on the boat and return with his friends. Those two accounts point in completely different directions. If Nolan intended to leave with the group, investigators must determine why he was no longer on the boat when it departed. If he truly chose to stay behind, then investigators must understand what happened after everyone else left at this point. Neither version has been officially confirmed by investigators. That is why the conflicting accounts remain one of the biggest unanswered parts of the entire case. For nearly 2 weeks, Katie's name appeared in news reports and online discussions without her own version of events being publicly available. That changed when members of her family released a statement addressing growing speculation. According to that statement, Katie safely left Horn Island on another boat later that day and has been cooperating with investigators throughout the investigation. Her family also stated that she believed Nolan's friends were encouraging him to return to the boat, and she assumed they would not leave without him. That detail immediately caught attention because it differs from the account that Nolan had decided to stay behind voluntarily. It's important to note that Katie has not been publicly accused of any wrongdoing. In fact, public statements from those connected to the investigation have indicated that she has cooperated with law enforcement from the beginning. Her family's message also asked people to stop spreading rumors and to respect her privacy while the investigation continues. AS investigators continue reviewing witness interviews alongside physical evidence. The focus remains on determining which parts of the timeline can be confirmed and which questions still need answers. One of the most significant developments came when GPS tracking information from the boat was made public through news reporting. Unlike witness interviews, GPS records simply log where a boat travels and when it moves. According to the reported timeline, the boat left its dock that morning and arrived at Horn Island before midday. For several hours, everything appeared normal as the group spent time on the island celebrating the 4th of July. The key moment came later that afternoon. The GPS data reportedly shows the boat leaving Horn Island at approximately 4:31 p.m. That single timestamp immediately raised new questions. Earlier discussions about the case often suggested the group had left much earlier, around the same time Nolan was last reportedly seen. Instead, the GPS record indicates there was a much longer period between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the boat's departure. That difference doesn't explain what happened, but it does show there is a section of the afternoon that investigators still need to fully understand. If the reported timeline is accurate, then there were roughly 90 minutes between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the moment the boat left the island. Exactly what happened during that time has not been publicly explained. Investigators have not released a complete minute-by-minute account of those missing 90 minutes, and that gap has become one of the biggest focuses of the investigation. The GPS information also reportedly tracked the boat after it left Horn Island. According to the published records, the boat returned toward the mainland before making several additional movements later that evening. Those movements have received attention because they provide investigators with a precise travel history, instead of estimates based on memory. However, it's important to understand what GPS tracking can and cannot prove. It can show where a boat traveled. It cannot show who was on board. It cannot record conversations. And it cannot explain what happened on the island before the boat departed. Those are questions investigators must answer using witness interviews, forensic evidence, digital records, and other information collected during the investigation. Simply put, the GPS timeline is a tool, not a conclusion. As investigators continue reviewing the evidence, the legal process has also taken an important step forward. The Wells family's attorneys have confirmed that once investigators finish their work, the case is expected to be presented to a grand jury. That announcement attracted widespread attention, but it is important to understand what it actually means. A grand jury does not decide whether someone is guilty. Instead, its role is to review the available evidence and determine whether there is enough legal basis for criminal charges. If any are appropriate, no one has been charged in connection with Nolan's death. Likewise, investigators have not publicly identified any suspects. Officials have also emphasized that the investigation remains active, meaning additional evidence could still emerge before any final decisions are made. For Nolan's family, however, every new development represents another step toward finding answers. While many questions remain unresolved, they continue to say their goal is not speculation or public accusations. Their focus, they have repeatedly stated, is simply learning exactly what happened during Nolan's final hours on Horn Island. Even with the GPS timeline, many of the most important questions remain unanswered. Officials have not publicly released a final cause or manner of death. Investigators have also not explained exactly what happened during the reported gap between Nolan's last confirmed sighting and the boat leaving the island. Another important piece of evidence is Nolan's phone. According to public statements from the family's legal team, both independent experts hired by the family and experts working with law enforcement are expected to participate in a joint forensic examination of the device. That approach is unusual, but it is intended to increase confidence in whatever digital evidence is recovered. If the phone contains deleted messages, location information, or other digital records, investigators hope it could help answer some of the questions that remain. For now, however, officials have not released the results of that examination, as this case gained national attention. Social media quickly filled with theories, rumors, and unverified claims. Some photos were shared with incorrect dates. Videos unrelated to the investigation were mistakenly connected to Nolan's case. Even claims that federal authorities had completely taken over the investigation spread online, despite public statements explaining that local investigators continue to lead the case while federal agencies have assisted in limited areas. These examples show why investigators continue asking the public to rely on verified information instead of online speculation. Every false rumor creates more confusion for investigators and adds more pain for Nolan's family. That is why many legal experts continue reminding the public that evidence, not internet theories, will ultimately determine what happened. Several major developments could still reshape this investigation. Investigators are continuing to review witness interviews, digital evidence, forensic findings, and the GPS timeline. The results of toxicology testing and other forensic examinations have not yet been publicly released. Once investigators complete their work, the evidence is expected to be presented to a grand jury, which will decide whether any criminal charges are supported by the facts. Until then, many of the biggest questions remain open.